Well, Merry Christmas. It's the end of 2023 and this is a review of what's happened in the last year. There has been some improvement in my listenership, or whatever you call it, on YouTube. Thank you for all those who have subscribed and left comments and so on. I really do value it. I like to bounce off people, it's really useful. Thank you to the one woman who is tolerant enough to keep watching my videos according to my statistics, and the two young people as well. The rest of us old fogies, though, thank you for putting up with me for so long. The channel, been a few which I would tentatively like to describe as sort of achievements. I'm pretty sure I discovered a new Roman road. I can't see any physical existence, but the document that's based on is pretty clear. Previous people, the experts, the academics, have placed it in the wrong place. They missed out a river, and they missed out the village, the name of which is at the top of the charter they were using to decipher this. So that was nice. I'll put a link into that. That's one small contribution to science I've made. I'm pretty sure it's pretty tight, the evidence. I've done some mapping of Welsh names in England, and that's pretty much the core strategy of what this channel is about, and that is discovering the prehistoric and the Roman in an English country. The stuff that came before the English came here, the really ancient stuff. And all of these charters, pretty much, not all, quite a few of the Saxon charters have Welsh names, Proto-Welsh, Romano-British, prehistoric names, especially rivers. For some reason the English were quite tolerant of rivers remaining, rivers retaining the names they had before they got there, which is why we have a load of avens, which is a Welsh word for river. But I did some mapping, both in Dorset and in South Berkshire and Wiltshire and Hampshire. And what I discovered is that in West Berkshire there's only one name that is Roman, Romano-British, Welsh or prehistoric, that isn't English, basically, in the whole of West Berkshire. So there was Saxon hegemony, and then below where the old antiquarians thought the Wansdyke used to be, there are quite a few non-English names, including Andover, Bedwin. There's loads of them, but I'm doing off the top of my head. I was incorrect about West Berkshire. There is one. There's this Spina land was in the Roman period called Spinis. So there was one tiny place in West Berkshire that retained its pre-English name, but the rest of it, I'm not talking about rivers. Rivers, the English were relaxed about rivers, but. So yeah, I also did something similar in Dorset with a different. It's quite a haphazard methodology, but I did it parish to parish. There are loads of pre-English names, so I'm putting the Welsh back into England. They are, if you can call a people that came here in the Bronze Age as being indigenous, they are the indigenous culture of Britain. And that's not to say they've got any rights over us, but we have to acknowledge they laid the groundwork for this country. So putting the prehistoric back into what I aim to do, for those people who are interested in listening, is aim to put the prehistoric, the Welsh, back into England. So yeah, it gives us insight into barrows and old Iron Age hill forts and all the rest of it. Which a lot of this has been done before, but it's all out of print. So my sources are people like Professor G.B. Grundy, Eckwall, who wrote the Dictionary of English Place Names. He's not always, both of those two guys are not always right. I'm glad they're not right, because it gives me a bit of room to make, to add to the conversation. So the English Place Names Society, the Sawyer database, the langscape.org.uk or ac.uk, which is quite useful. They do a translation, a gloss of some of these charters, and again, sometimes they're not right, but so that's some of the, you know, that's the sort of historical things that I think has been successful, and I hope to expand on that. But this is about the landscape. So my animal photography, I've done, just been really lucky. I use an Olympus EM1 Mark II for the stabilisation. It's about 10 years old, the camera, and I use a 12 to 200 millimeter lens, which means I can do both vlogging. It's a little bit tight, it's okay, and I can, and if a deer pops his head out of a bush away 200 mil, I can get a really good shot of them. It's all about the landscape, and that includes the landscape today. So this is, so when I'm putting the prehistoric back into the landscape, we don't live in the prehistoric. It's an experience of the landscape for us, both the past and the present, and loads and loads of birds, interesting. I don't know what it is, a peregrine falcon or a harrier, I don't know what it was, but right next to my shoulder, and I got a great shot of him, and loads of deer and hares and things like that. So that has been a real pleasure, and it adds it adds value to any walk to see animals. My theory is, if you go on a walk that's destined to be 6 hours, you will have an encounter with a beautiful wild animal that's not domesticated, and it's very fulfilling. It's a very nice thing to have happened. I found some interesting pottery, mostly Romano British, because they mass produced. The Romans really were a modern people, and then we went back into barbarism for about 1,000 years. So it can happen to any civilization, this sort of stuff. But because they were mass producing things, pottery mainly, it was their Tupperware, and it's everywhere where there is a Roman settlement. You can find Roman pottery. So I found a bit of that. I think I found my first prehistoric pottery, but I'm just not an expert enough to know for sure. But that, again, that adds value to a walk. You're walking, you know, it's all windy and wet and whatever, and then you find a nice bit of pottery, and you're holding in your hands something that's been held in the hands of somebody 1,000 years dead. And that's a very poignant experience as well. Talking of the Romano British and the English, something that an idea, I'm sure other people have come across it before, but developing the knowledge that the early English were burying themselves in Roman sites, and they weren't accidental. Previous archaeologists have said, oh, this is obviously an encounter between the Romans and the Saxons, and they've just been buried where they were killed. No, you don't. If you were a Roman in your villa and you beat off the Saxons and killed a couple of them, you wouldn't bury them in your villa. And if you were a Saxon and you just raided the Romans to take your stuff, you wouldn't just leave them in a burning building. So there's something else going on there. Things have been placed with them to show that these places were in some sense important to the early English. Whether or not the Romans had to have cleared out, you don't just bury somebody in somebody's living room, but these places were important to them, so they were burying, you know, literally burying them in the middle of beautiful mosaics, an anglo-saxon lord. So I don't know whether anybody's paying attention to this sort of thing, but the more sites that I go to, the more I find out, the more this story is developing. So that's something that's happened this year as well. I've crashed 2 drones, which has basically cost me quite a lot of money, which is ironic because I did do health and safety for a living, and there are problems with drones. Do fly away, they do go off and crash, and it's quite a costly process. It may be used area. I may not be looking after them properly, keeping the right temperature or whatever, or oiling them, or I don't know. But it's drone flight. To be a drone pilot's the wrong way. The wrong word. It sort of describes drones add something to an experience of the landscape, a better view, and I've thoroughly enjoyed using drones to try and the visual language of drone footage I haven't mastered yet. I don't fully understand it in a way that photography is much more instinctive for me, but I use drones on pretty much every video now, and that's something that's developed. I haven't done much gardening. I will do more. As you might be able to see, there's I haven't mastered winter gardening, but for example, this is watercress, and I got a packet of watercress from Sainsbury's, and then cut a little piece off, nipped it off with my thumb, put it in some compost. A month and a half later, look at it, it's beautiful, and it doesn't mind winter as long as it's in the greenhouse with me. It's put on loads and loads of roots and foliage as well, and it tastes really, really nice. That's a bit of vitamin C for the winter, and in the old days when spring came, people used to wait for the trains to come into London with all the watercress, and then a month after the watercress along came all the strawberries. So it's seasonal food, winter food, But so I haven't done much gardening, but I will do. It was just too much. It was just too much for me, and I've cut back, taking a little bit of land and intensifying it, concentrating on it, is a much better strategy. So I'll be doing more videos about gardening soon. So this is my little review for the year. Thank you so much for all the support, and I hope to see you all next year on more history walks. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Ta-da for now.